To be quite honest, I never really understood the appeal of mid-century architecturally styled homes. To me, they always appeared very underwhelming. And I have to say, after doing this build, I have definitely turned a new leaf and I see the appeal in mid-century homes now. So I'm very excited to share all of that parts of the journey with you guys here. Now, for those of you just discovering this space, my name is Michael and I want to let you know that you have landed in Sovereign Sandboxing, a channel where we build, play, and reflect on games that let us shape our own stories. Let's get back to the video. We are continuing with my huge project, the SimCity project, and we are building things out one lot at a time at this point in the project, which admittedly has been a very fun process for me because I actually get to show you guys like the full vision of what I was thinking when actually building out this world. And I'm just having a ton of fun doing that and all of that jazz. I just started the video and I'm already sidebarring and sidetracking myself here. But anyways, we're back in SimCity and we are building out the Blue Water Village neighborhood, the neighborhood that was named after the Sims 2 open for business neighborhood, and the neighborhood that I have designated as the suburb of the city. And as you'll see on the graphic there, I have just outlined the particular lot that we are building on, and I'm very excited for it because we are definitely completing a little bit of a section within Blue Water Village. It's really blending in all of the important aspects of Blue Water Village that I really wanted to show you guys. First and foremost, like we have the townhouses in the that are just facing the main avenue there, the main avenue, which I have called Main Street, by the way. And what those townhouses have really gone to depict here is a step down in density from a from a multifamily housing unit into the single family homes that Blue Water Village will be known for as I continue to build it out here. Now, as you guys can clearly see, like from that graphic and from the size of the neighborhood, there's a lot of lots to there's a lot of lots to build out, and in some ways, I don't want to say like I regret making Blue Water Village as large as I did, but there is a lot of single family homes that I have to build here, which is why I have changed up the pace of my channel here just to balance out more urban developments with single family homes. Because otherwise, if you are new to the channel, I would have just been doing single family homes one after another consistently, and I just felt like that wasn't very balanced. Anyways, today's build is a chance to just kind of close out this little corner of Blue Water Village, and we are actually stepping into the cul-de-sac area. And the cul-de-sac here is something that is hard to depict, to be honest with you guys. Like, it's hard to actually build out a cul-de-sac in the Sims 3 creator world. So for now, like, the choice that I made is I just decided to have a little street that sticks out, and it just has that little end piece to it. I don't know even what to call it. I almost want to call it like a street landing, but that doesn't make sense. But anyways, cul-de-sacs are hard to build within the Create a World tool because you either have to use that end piece or you have to like make some sort of a circle with the road tools, and the road tools don't really play nice when it comes to creating circles, at least perfectly circular shapes, I want to say. It can be kind of difficult, and plus like all of the lots are square lots, so it's not like you're going to be it's not like the lots actually adhere to the curvature of the circle of a standard cul-de-sac. So I decided to make the Create a World choices that I did. I'm pretty glad that I did make that choice because as I was building this lot here, it was, you know, it really helped to round out and end off this little cul-de-sac and just to kind of change the orientation of the homes. On the other hand, like by the time I finish all of the lots here, I might take a look into putting out some sort of a version 2 of of my SimCity world, so I might actually change the orientations there just to adhere to realistic standards, but I'm not too keen on doing that because I'd have to change the entire layout of Blue Water Village. And yes, I can actually just save some lots here and there, and I have been uploading them to my SimFile ShareNet folders, so it's not like I would actually lose the lots per se, but it would just be very inconvenient for me to kind of it would just be a lot of work, and it might be something that I'm open to by the time I finish building out all the lots for SimCity, which isn't for a long time. If you've been watching this channel for a little while here, and if you've been watching the Create a World series, you'll know that I put in actually 200 lots. So yeah, there's a lot to build out, and I have ran worlds, custom worlds that I have built for myself that had like 185 lots, and it ran smoothly for me then. So before you guys kind of get a little nervous here, like how well this runs, at least for me, like having these larger worlds with a lot of lots runs pretty smoothly for me. And yes, I did build out 180 lots way back in the day, but I was doing a lot more copy and paste. Anyways, that was with an older computer as well, like a much older computer, and I've got a gaming laptop now, so things honestly like run so smoothly with The Sims 3 using 2020 whatever technology for a 15-year-old game. Like it's you know, it is, and like gaming laptops and all of that, they are expensive, yes, but you know, I would almost say it's worth the price to pay, just for like ease of access for the video games and everything. And as you guys know, like I keep my game fairly clean of custom content. However, I can see myself going down a slippery slope here, because I have not for this lot particularly, but I have downloaded outside of the Sims 3 store for just a couple of things here and there, and I do include some of them actually within this lot build itself. I do end up using some graffiti artwork in the basement, but we'll kind of get into that vision a little later on in this video. Let's get back to the house here. So I decided to choose a mid-century modern architectural style for this home, really to help balance out the different architectural styles that you're going to be finding in Blue Water Village. I've explained this before in the modern two-story home that I had built, which you can probably catch on screen at certain angles here and there, but I really didn't want all the houses to follow the exact same kind of architectural style throughout the entirety of the neighborhood. I wanted to split it up and just to kind of keep things fresh as I continue to build out Blue Water Village. And the reason why I decided to choose a mid-century modern type home is because it is outside of my comfort zone, to be quite frank with you guys, and I don't mind the challenge. But also, like the modern house, like the modern style architecture house, it introduces new shapes to the neighborhood that that is completely different from the McMansion style home that I have been building for several of the lots. The way that I figure it is that if I maintain like a 70-30 ratio for, you know, for McMansion style suburban homes versus like other architectural styles, it will help to keep things fresh throughout the entire Blue Water Village neighborhood, because like I've mentioned before, there's a lot of single family home builds that I'm gonna have to be doing, and I'm happy to do them, don't get me wrong, but I need to break things up to make the neighborhood look fresh and to keep the neighborhood looking yeah, just to keep the neighborhood looking fresh and feeling dynamic and everything. The thing that binds all of the architectural styles together in this case is just going to be the color palette. And I've explained the color palette before, but it's best embodied by the townhouse build that I was doing. And I'll put that thumbnail up again just to kind of explain here. Within the townhouse build, I had made each of the townhouse units a different shade of blue, kind of emulating a rolling wave. And that's the kind of color palette that I want to apply to all of the single family homes, is just making them different shades of blues or whites, or just incorporating blue in some way, shape, or form. It stays true to the Blue Water Village name. It's also my favorite color, and it also keeps things consistent through the entire neighborhood. The reason why I'm explaining that is because when you depart from the standard architectural style that you use, in my case, it's the McMansion architectural style. And because it is most commonly found here, when I depart away from that kind of architectural style, I do have to unify them with a different element, whether that's materials, which in my case, you could make the argument that they are unified by the same materials. Everything's using like some sort of a siding and maybe a brick, but that's beside the point. My other unifying element is going to be the color palette that I apply to each of the homes. And as long as I stay within that rolling wave color palette, I think that the unity will be apparent. Anyways, when it comes to mid-century modern homes, the most important and distinguishing feature of those homes is the roof shape. It is paramount to being able to build a successful mid-century modern home. Now, the conundrum here is that The Sims 3 has, you know, for lack of a better term, a pretty piss poor roof system that you can build with. Like, it never evolved from The Sims 2. If I remember correctly, I'm not too familiar on the building features anymore with The Sims 2, but it hasn't evolved much since then. And the evolution, well, the lack of evolution, I should say, that we got in The Sims 3 really isn't builder friendly, if I am going to be completely honest. Now, that's, you know, the roof is one of the most important parts of a home. It gives it its defining character. It really is one of the defining features that really emulate like what kind of an architectural style a home has or whatnot. But anyways, the roof tool is very difficult, and it was very important for me to actually get the roof right for this particular build and for future mid-century modern homes. Now, in this case, because I was working off of a very specific floor plan for a mid-century modern home, I had to compromise because the roof tool just really wasn't doing it for the angles that I wanted to achieve with it. I was trying to get like a higher angle and a lower angle to kind of join up together, and it just really was, the game really wasn't cooperating with me. Like, it wasn't extending out the lower angled roof to the end of the actual structure here, which kind of sucks. Which does suck actually, because it doesn't look as sleek as I was hoping it would look. But to be fair, I did compromise by just kind of adding in a flat roof for that section, so that at least the angular shape just kind of continuously flows in a way. It doesn't flow as gracefully or as smoothly as I would want it, because I would extend out the shingles all the way to the end if I had a choice, but it does the job just fine. And I was playing around a lot with the roof tool, both on and off camera, just to try to get the roof shape right for the for this mid-century modern home build. And yeah, that was the best compromise I could come up with. So at this point, I'm just kind of calling it what it is, and I am just going to move on from the roof structure from there. Now, if I'm like, as in the name of true transparency, I should mention that the version that you guys are seeing right before you is actually more like a version 1 of it. The fireplace is too large for what it was. I needed to half the size on that. And then the color scheme that I ended up using in this first part of the build is actually, it was just way too dark for what I wanted it to achieve. And maybe I'll do like a dark and stormy version of a mid-century modern house build sometime down in the future, but this one really wasn't hitting the way that I needed it to hit. So I ended up changing up the color scheme kind of suddenly in the middle of today's video. So you'll see that exterior change quite quickly here. What really helped me in this project and with building out this project was walking away from it and kind of coming back with a fresh mindset. And to be completely fair, I was also gathering resources in between video takes here and there. So there was quite a bit of resources and references that were used for this mid-century modern build that I really wanted to achieve. Now, you've probably seen it appear a couple of times on screen, but I also wanted to prioritize adding in a conversation pit. Now, I'm not entirely sure what the history is of conversation pits. I believe that they were very popular in the 70s, but anyways, it's like a lower level that you just kind of, it's literally a pit, you guys. You sit down, you have a conversation with folks, and, you know, honestly, you're probably drinking or, you know, smoking, considering it would be something that was, I want to say it was popular in the 70s, so like you're indoor smoking, you guys, if you're hanging out in the 70s. But yeah, conversation pit was certainly something that I wanted to bring into this particular build. I feel that it was very important to have. It's a unique feature that none of the other homes have, and as you'll see this build finish out here, especially with the interiors, it is something that I really do stand by. Functionally, I'm not too sure how conversation pits are going to work for you in game. Like, you could just have like a bunch of Sims sitting there and that's kind of it. If you have any ideas for additional gameplay functionality I could add to the conversation pit, you know what to do. Just sound off in that comment section, because I do go back and I edit these lots at a later time. But yeah, the conversation pit was something that I fell in love with and something that I really wanted. And the sectional couch that I am using is something that came with the 70s, 80s, and 90s stuff pack, which is a stuff pack that is criminally underrated in my opinion. I use a lot of the stuff from there. You'll also see throughout this build, like throughout the beginning of this build, is that I was very indecisive when it comes to windows and doors. This is completely out of character for me. Usually when I am going through when I'm about to do a build of any kind, I'm pretty confident on the different windows and doors that I'm going to use. But you'll see me cycle through the different windows and doors and different window setups and all of this and all of that. Like, you'll see a lot of humming and hawing as I pick out the fenestrations here. And you know, I have to be honest with you guys, I did cut out a lot of footage just to be able to make it not so tedious, but I'm still certain that it's going to be a tedious little moment in today's video. Is you're just going to be seeing me get so indecisive about windows and doors. And like I mentioned, this is out of character for me. I'm usually pretty confident with what I'm going with, and I usually stick with it too. So this was new for me, and I guess it just comes with this being quite literally the first mid-century modern building or mid-century modern house that I've actually built in game. This is a style I've never attempted before. Like the other Blue Water Village single-family homes, there are other elements that are actually quite unifying in its design and form and all of that, that again help to blend in these departures from a typical architectural style. And of course, I know I keep mentioning it, but I do feel like it's important to point out that the construction standard that I am applying to Blue Water Village is, of course, having each of the single family homes on a foundation. They each need to have a basement and a 2-car garage with 4 parking spots. So that's 2 parking spots within the garage and 2 parking spots just outside of the garage on the driveway. And the reason why that is a standard that I have upheld with such great importance is that I feel like if you are living further away from the city, you need to have suburban amenities to kind of make up for the lack of proximity to the actual city amenities. So you don't have access to as many parks, but in that, when you do live in the suburbs, you do have more space, and with that space comes a bigger home, more parking spaces, etc. We could go on forever about talking about suburban living versus urban living, which is right for whoever. I honestly think that there is a time and a place for everything when it comes to suburban living versus urban denser living and all of that. But that is a discussion I can save for another time, because I really want to focus more on the build here. Speaking of the different styles that you can find in Blue Water Village, I'm not going to try and repeat myself, but the only two styles that the three styles that I want to incorporate within Blue Water Village is, of course, that McMansion style that I have discussed endlessly before, but I also want to include mid-century modern style homes and modern style homes as well. And just by keeping to those three styles and then balancing them out as a ratio of like 70 to 30, the 70% of the builds being McMansions and then 30% being the other two styles, I feel like it can still help keep things uniform, but still help to keep things fresh. But I just wanted to mention that the only other two styles that I'm thinking outside of that McMansion was the mid-century modern and modern style, which both have very different shapes to them. When it comes to mid-century modern style homes, part of what never appealed to me is actually the exterior. Like the outside never really looked great to me, like even in real life. They've just been homes that have never appealed to me, you guys. I don't know how else I can really explain it here. And the reason why is mostly the exterior just never appealed to me. However, by the end of this build, I have totally changed my tune on that. And I think that these are actually fantastically styled homes. And I am almost sorry that I never gave them a chance, but here I am giving them a chance here. So, you know, an old dog can learn new tricks and all of that, or at least this kind of proves it. But anyways, the exteriors never really impressed me. However, what does impress me by the end of this build is actually the utility of this home. Like it really surprised me in a great way, and it really impressed me. I really love the way that this particular build actually turned out. And by the time you see me switch to a lighter color palette on the exterior, you're gonna really start to see me have some fun with this particular build. By the way, I also wanted to mention that the street name for the cul-de-sac is actually called Lake Meadow Circle. That is a Sims 2 reference. And it is a Sims 2 reference that actually just copies and pastes the Lake Meadow Circle street name from the Sims 2's Blue Water Village Open for Business. So it is a direct reference to The Sims 2's Open for Business expansion pack that I base this particular neighborhood off of. So it has been used as a cul-de-sac for this build and actually the next two builds that we'll be doing to complete the cul-de-sac here. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that because I am taking into account lore as I go through these kinds of builds. Like I mentioned before, the exterior of this build included was something that I kind of feel is still underwhelming in a few ways. Like, yes, I was able to get the roof to a point where I actually liked the shape and felt like it does emulate a true mid-century modern style home. However, the windows, the fenestrations, although they are nice, you know, just to stay true to the mid-century modern build, I also had to use some higher windows for some of the bedrooms there, so it just kind of like takes away from the exterior, at least from the front facing exterior, quite a bit there. And the siding for mid-century buildings, like they really only differ in material like when you get to the fireplaces, and then that's like continue out throughout some parts of the foundation. And I found that the siding here just looked better as a continuous material throughout the entire build. Maybe this will be an opportunity for me to go back and just kind of change up the materials on the exterior a little bit, but I do like the way that it ended up looking. And I think that the real magic with this particular build is that if you're looking at it from the front, it's not that impressive, but as soon as you start kind of making your way to the backyard, that's when it starts to get a lot more interesting, a lot more dynamic, and to be quite honest, like it offers a lot more utilitarian appeals with this kind of style here, because the windows that would be placed on the front of the house, for example, you'd really only be able to see the house that's going to be sitting in front of it, whereas the real views are going to be from the backyard, because You might have a house that's just sitting east of the lot here. However, you do have like better park views and better natural views coming from the east anyway. So it's like you want to really capitalize on those views where you can. And yeah, that's really how I feel about this house, is that even though like the front facing part of it isn't as impressive, as soon as you start moving the camera around just a little bit, like just to get some glimpses of the backyard, that's when things start to really come together and really start to become interesting. So of course, like if you guys have suggestions on how to make the front facing part of the home interesting, like in terms of the exterior, you just got to leave a comment below. It is perfectly fine to suggest things. Like I said earlier, I go back and I edit these lots because I don't think that these are ever really truly finished in a sense, but I'm also not afraid to go back and, you know, correct a mistake or two when I feel the time warrants it. And the exterior here might actually warrant it. To try and like make it look better though, I did focus a tiny bit on the front yard landscaping just to try to put a little bit of lipstick on a pig here. And even though I like the front doors, honestly, and I do like the front windows that look into the living room there, the rest of the front facing part of the house is just something that is very underwhelming to me. And maybe I could just switch out a few windows. Maybe that's the issue that I'm running into here, but who knows? I might have to experiment on it later. At the time that I was building this, I thought that the higher windows were very much something that was true to the mid-century modern form. So I might have to revisit this, is just all I'm trying to say here. And the front yard landscaping was indeed me trying to put lipstick on a pig here, but I'm not mad at it. I actually like how the landscaping turned out, and I do really love this lot, by the way. I started having a lot of fun just building this one out, and it actually ended up being a lot more expensive than I had anticipated for a bungalow build. Actually, between this and the other two bungalow builds, this one is the most expensive. Like it is, I want to say like 190,000 simoleons at the end of this build, at the end of the furnishing of everything. And yeah, it kind of surprised me a little bit, because the 2-story builds that I've done, like with finished basements, end up being like 200, like they're over 200,000 easily. Like I think that the modern 2-story house was only like 215,000. I always quote the prices wrong here, so hopefully I'm throwing up some thumbnails there just to correct myself and to give you guys like a more accurate idea as to like how my 2-story builds end up costing Sims. So yeah, this one is surprisingly expensive. And I think that I get a little carried away with the interiors. Honestly, the conversation pit was a very bold feature that I had decided to implement within this build. And I had to really center the living room around it. And I wasn't like sure at the time that you're seeing it unfold right now, how the living room would actually function. I just knew that I didn't want it to be a TV, and what it really ended up being was a socializing area, like a gathering area, a party room per se, as some might call it, but I don't actually think it's a true party room. But it's definitely a place where you do want to actually host people and to host guests. So, you know, it really ended up being that kind of a space, and a space that I thought was really well executed by the end of this build here. And I just didn't know it at the time, which is kind of funny. Like I mentioned earlier, like the functions of the conversation pit itself is, you know, it's questionable. Like I think that all you can really do is make Sims just kind of sit there and talk, I guess. But hey, if you have any creative suggestions there, I am begging you to leave that comment. And by the way, like I'm not trying to farm for comments here and there in these videos. I am actually legitimately searching for suggestions if there's something that you guys actually don't think that I'm doing, or if you guys have a good idea there. So I'm really not trying to farm for compliments, you guys, or for comments, you guys. That's just not my style. But let's move on. Throughout this build, I used a lot of stuff from the 70s, 80s, and 90s stuff pack, which again, I have said earlier in this video. I've said that the stuff pack is pretty underrated within the Sims 3 franchise. However, even though this is a mid-century home build that kind of calls for those kind of objects to be used in here, it is definitely a stuff pack that I have been using throughout all of my builds. And I can confidently say that it makes a lot of the, it makes an appearance in pretty much every build that I have done in some way, shape, or form, whether it's something small or something that is a feature element of a certain build. I can't think of any off the top of my head, unfortunately, but I've definitely used the 70s, 80s, and 90s stuff pack in a lot of stuff. And I do think that it is quite underrated. Even though at the time that it was released, it was actually a stuff pack that I was never really interested in. And this might come as a surprise, but it was one of the last stuff packs that I've purchased. And I purchased that from the EA app, I guess, or whatever that thing is called. Within the last, I want to say like 2 years or so. So even like 15 years after this game was released and as they were developing the franchise, I haven't purchased like absolutely everything from that this franchise has to offer. I mean, I think it's kind of obvious because you don't see anything from the Katy Perry Sweet Treats stuff pack, which I don't even think that I'll ever get, you guys. Like I'd have to have like a very niche build in order for me to be convinced to get that. But anyways, the 70s, 80s, and 90s stuff pack was one of the last ones that I got. I also did end up getting the movie stuff pack, which you guys would have seen a lot earlier within this series as well, especially when I went around to making the film studios. Now, admittedly, that was more so a purchase because I knew that I was going to be making a film studio, and I knew that I wanted to kind of expand upon that a little bit within my studio town build. However, I have once again been surprised by that expansion pack by using those objects in different opportunities as each build would come about. So, you know, I wouldn't necessarily call the movie stuff pack underrated per se, but the 70s, 80s, and 90s one definitely is. I think that it deserved a second chance, and it deserves justice is really what I'm trying to say here. The living room does go through a journey as I was really allowing it to evolve. Like, it wasn't very apparent to me that this was a social gathering place, that it was a place to host guests in. I was just trying to make a living room here, and I was, you know, a little confused, if I'm going to be completely honest, by the conversation pit, because it was such a bold feature to have in the living room. It just kind of threw me off as to how I wanted it to function. And you guys will see later on in this build that this living room really is the feature room of this home build at the very end of this video. But yeah, what helped me kind of allow this living room to evolve was walking away from it. And while I was walking away, I was gathering new references for this mid-century build. So I was also kind of looking at things to do with different living rooms and stuff. And although like the references themselves didn't necessarily help me out directly, it did kind of allow me to open my mind a little bit as to how this space was going to function. And later on, when I started developing a loft, yes, you heard that right, there is a loft space in this build. You're going to see how this all just really comes together, and I'll speak more on the loft space in just a bit here. I do want to switch gears and talk a little bit about the kitchen, because within the kitchen, I didn't want it to be, I really wanted it to reference the 50s, and with the name like mid-century, that usually does reference the 50s in of itself. So the mid-century build, already the architecture kind of, the mid-century modern build, like the reference was in its name is really what I'm trying to say. Sorry about the word salad there. But yeah, the kitchen itself, I really wanted it to reference the 50s. I wanted to, again, step out of my comfort zone and do something that I haven't done before. I have referenced like the 70s in a past build, so I definitely wanted to avoid that kind of color palette, and I just wanted to use some different objects while still staying somewhat true to the 50s and what you could find within a mid-century modern build if it was built in the 50s. The teal color palette that you'll find throughout the entire home is something that I keep pretty much consistent up until we get to the basement, and I do something pretty cool with the basement color palette there. And I know I keep like teasing things I'm going to talk about, but I will talk about the basement a little later on. But anyways, the teal color palette is something that I really leaned into to help depict that this is something that is very much inspired by, well, I guess the 50s for one, but also just giving it a little more of a psychedelic feel, that this is more of like an amalgamation of the 50s, 60s, and so on. This home, like the interior choices here, really don't stay true to one decade, which is why I say it's an amalgamation. And if you can hear a cat in the background, it is indeed my cat wanting to break into my room here, and he's just gonna have to wait because I'm not done the recording yet. Moving on. Sometimes the teal color palette, especially in the kitchen, kind of makes it feel a little hospital-like, and I actually did intend for it to feel that way. I don't think that all of the design trends in each of the decades, including this teal design trend as to when that happened, wherever, like, I don't agree with all of them, but I also appreciate them at the same time. And so this is kind of my way of respecting a trend that I actually think is quite hideous, but still using it anyways because it's true to the depiction of the era that I wanted it to depict. And again, I know I just said that this is more of like a collection of several different decades within the interior choices, but hey, at the same time, like whenever I'm making one of those choices, I do want to try to stay as true to it as I possibly can. The conversation pit, by the way, and I'll kind of get into this, is more of like a blood orange in terms of the color. Now, whenever you have an enclosed area in The Sims 3 and you dig a little hole, pretty much if you delete like some parts of the foundation, unfortunately, like it just doesn't light properly, which is really annoying. And because the blood orange that I used on the couches, on the sectional couches and in the carpet are actually quite bright. And, that's the highlight color that I used within the living room was that blood orange. And just to like make it more orange and to, I guess, kind of contrast it in a way to like make it clear to players and to, I guess, Sims as well, is that in the kitchen, I decided to use the accent color as a candy red. So you actually have that difference between a red and a blood orange that you can bring some objects together just to kind of compare and contrast. Like I imagine that Sims would argue that, something is orange, or like maybe this, the conversation pit is red, or maybe it's orange. And then you bring in a red chair or object or whatever from the kitchen. You're like, oh no, this is actually red. But anyways, I wanted to do that because blood orange is a conversation piece in terms of a color, and it's something that I really wanted to use throughout this house because, again, it's not a color palette that I usually lean towards. I am the neutral guy that loves his neutrals, and here I am using a bolder choice in a home that really kind of calls for it, if you want my opinion on it. Okay, let's now talk about the loft, because the loft space here makes this home really make sense in my opinion, and it's honestly the real feature of this home. I don't typically build out loft spaces in The Sims 3, and the reason for that is because there's usually a lot of graphic collisions and sometimes there's pathing issues that Sims have, so I try to avoid building out loft spaces and actually attic spaces as well, because you really have to fiddle around with that Sims 3 roof tool that I just complained about earlier in the video. And it's a very finicky process, and unless you have a very specific unless you have like a very specific design in mind, it usually doesn't work out for the better, or at least for me, it doesn't. So that's why I don't really mess around too much with attic spaces. Although, you know, to be fair, I could probably add in a few attics here and there within some of the Blue Water Village homes that have higher hipped roofs. But anyways, that's not the point of this video. It's just that the loft space is not something that I typically look for. It's something I actively avoid trying to implement. And the reason why I've actually decided to do a loft space for this particular build is because the windows in the backyard were really bugging me. Like, I love how I was able to stack some of those floor to ceiling glass windows. Forget what the proper term is for them, but I was really happy to stack them, and it was letting a lot of natural light in from the backyard into the kitchen. But I'm very much someone that is bothered by certain spaces that that don't actually function. And if I can fit in a floor to ceiling glass window, then there's obviously enough space for Sims to actually go up there and actually enjoy. So I did a little bit of experimenting off camera just to see how much space I had to actually work with when it comes to the loft area, and it turns out that I had quite a bit. Another reason why I don't really like loft spaces, and you'll see it particularly apparent in this particular build, is that you can, like, when you get up on a loft space, you can kind of see down on everything that you can, unless you have certain ceiling tiles put into place. And I've been actively avoiding ceilings throughout all of my builds. I don't think that the ceiling function is really great in The Sims 3, like for interior ceilings and all of that. So I've been actively avoiding that too. And when you build a loft, unfortunately, it kind of exposes the fact that you don't have ceilings in your builds. And yeah, you can see why. Like, if you take screenshots and all of that of your Sims that are enjoying the loft space, you can actually see to the garage, and that just really wouldn't be realistic. You would have a wall, etc., etc. So yeah, it kind of exposes a lot of gameplay design they're not design elements, they're not even design features, but a lot of gameplay collisions and unintended, I don't know, unintended experiences, I guess. I don't even know what I'm trying to say here, but a loft space will actually expose the fact that you don't have ceilings. It will also highlight any kind of collisions that your roof is having, and that's really why I don't like putting in attics or loft spaces, is because I feel like it just kind of highlights a lot of problems of the game, and I just don't want to feature that in my builds, and I don't want to have players really experience that 24/7. So yeah, that's why I really don't like doing lofts, and why I had decided to build a loft here. It's just that the space was really screaming out to me to at least experiment with it, and I'm so glad that I did. I just felt that there was way too much space that's not being used, and although, like, you could make a case to have like a 2-story floor to ceiling glass window to let in a lot of natural light, I decided, you know, as soon as I placed down the floors and saw how much space I realistically had to use, I just couldn't resist but add in a loft. I did relocate the bar up to the loft. I felt that that was really smart to do because it brings a unique feature up to the loft space. I may redo the stairs though to make them a little more airy, like without a solid strainer part of the stairs there. Like, I'm thinking one of the floating stairs might actually look better in that particular location. So I am going to be writing that one down in the good old notebook, so that I may go back and actually edit that. But yeah, the loft space really turned into something that just kind of evolved, and it really helps to make the home make sense. And yeah, I was really sold on the amount of floor space that I could use with it. And I determined that first and foremost by placing floor tiles, of course, and I did a lot of this off camera, so I do apologize, but to determine how much space I could use realistically within this particular lot. I placed floor tiles, but I was also placing a lot of walls and just kind of determining where it collides with the roof or pokes through the actual roof itself. So that's how I was able to determine how much space I actually had to work with. And yeah, I love this loft space. It really brought everything together, and it just makes it such a unique home now, and I just absolutely love it. I can't say enough good things about it. It's like, as boring as the front face of the home is for this mid-century modern home, it makes up for it with all of the utilitarian uses that you can have here. And the bedrooms and the main floor living quarters really come together quickly at this point. I was really having a lot of fun with this build because I really understood its identity here, and I feel like that identity is something that is shared throughout a lot of mid-century modern homes, because I was going off of a real floor plan for this. And the way that I understand a mid-century modern home is that you have your hosting space for guests, for parties, etc. You have your public hosting space, and then you have private living quarters that is sequestered off into a certain wing of the home. That's at least the floor plan that I was going with. So maybe there's more to discover, and to be honest, those kind of discoveries and understanding how this architectural style actually functions is something that I am in it for, because I have plans to continue building mid-century modern homes, as I've explained before. I also do quickly shift over to getting the layout of the basement, because there comes a point where I am actually going to be doing the bathrooms. And if you've been on this channel long enough, you'll know that for bathrooms, I like to do them all in one shot. And so in order to do that, I need to figure out where all the bathrooms are going to be. And I absolutely wanted to have one in the basement, because there will be a bedroom and some more functional spaces in the basement. And I'll talk about that in a bit. I'm not too crazy over the primary bedroom. I switched the closet space and the sleeping space of the primary bedroom around, because there were, again, those those floor to ceiling windows, I keep reversing that, present. And so I wanted more natural light in on the sleeping quarter side, as opposed to it filtering into a closet. So I switched that around. I'm not too crazy over that switch. I might switch them back and just kind of take an L there in terms of like allowing a lot of natural light in. But at the same time, I feel like for a like a standard master bedroom in the Blue Water Village neighborhood needs to have its own walk-in closet space of some sort. It needs to have an ensuite bathroom, and it of course needs the sleeping quarters itself. And I didn't really have a lot of space for the sleeping quarters. Like, honestly, you guys, that space where I placed the bed would function better as a closet. It's just the windows that don't make it make sense, in my opinion, at the very least. Again, I might switch things around. I know that in some of the layouts earlier on in this episode, I had the bedroom part kind of bump out a little bit within the hallway, so who knows? I might go back and redo that. So we'll just kind of see how I feel about it, or how you guys feel about it. As you can tell, the mid-century sets from the Sims 3 store were used quite a bit throughout this entire build. I even go back and I edit in some rooms with more of those objects, because to be quite honest, like, I can't remember which object comes from which set most of the time. So sometimes I have to either have the set open on my phone or even open in another window where I'm just like referencing that as well. So, you know, those references came into play here for this build too. And I have to say, like, for a bungalow build, this home can actually host a pretty large family comfortably. We've got 2 bedrooms plus a master bedroom on the main floor, and then in the basement we've got another bedroom there. So it's, yeah, it can host quite a large family. And you'll see me do one of the kids' bedrooms with a bunk bed, which again is another thing that's very rare for me to do, just because I find that whenever you start up the game, the bunk bed automatically spawns another bunk bed on top of it, which I absolutely hate. So, so that is why I have been avoiding using that object. I mean, that happened. I mean, I used it in the one of the townhouse builds, and when I had loaded up my game, it had spawned on top of itself. So it's just like one of those Sims 3 glitches and quirks that they never got around to fixing. I'm kind of getting a little distracted here. I ended up changing the loft a little bit just to make it slightly more social. What I had before was admittedly a little bit of a placeholder, if I'm going to be honest with you. Like, I was kind of flirting with the idea of different objects and such, but then I decided that because the loft looks down into the kitchen, which is essentially a very public space for this home, and also into the living room, that I may as well embrace the the extrovertedness of it. I may as well embrace the hosting capabilities of the loft, which is probably the better way to word that. But yeah, I also changed the skill object, like from the telescope to an art easel. I'm not very good at placing skilled objects within these single family home builds, so I've got to get a little bit better at that because they can be pretty decorative as well. I contemplated maybe placing a chest set up there, but then I just thought that, you know, I just didn't really care for it at that point. I felt that the art easel was a little more airy, first and foremost, like from a decor perspective. And I also felt that the easel, which came from the outdoor living stuff pack, by the way, was also more suitable for the space because you have all of those views. And if you use the telescope, of course, you'd see the sky, but you'd pretty much be looking into your other neighbors' yards. So I decided to forego the telescope in light of the easel being available to me. As you'll see me do the bathrooms, they are sterile. They are, again, leaning into that hospital green teal color from the 50s. It's a hideous color palette, but I absolutely intended on using it, and I love it for what it is, for being a hideous color palette and a design a design scheme that I absolutely disagree with, and I don't get why anybody thought it was appealing to begin with. But here we are, here I am using it, respecting it, and respecting that it was it's iconic in the sense that it represents a specific era, so that I respect a lot. But yeah, within the bathrooms, I did change things up just a little bit here. First and foremost, I added in more shower/tub combinations, and the only one that looked good was, unfortunately, like, I believe it was like 1,500 simoleons, which is a big reason why it upped the price of this particular home, because I placed a couple of them within this lot. It was the only one that looked good, and I felt that that was very necessary and something very reminiscent of an older style home to have that shower tub combination. So I decided to place it in here. I also, what that did was it actually forced me to change my bathroom format slightly. So as opposed to having a 3x1 walk-in shower, it's now a 2x1 with a shower tub combination. And even the tub in the master ensuite bathroom is something that helped to force me to change my bathroom formats just a little bit. So now there's like a wall that divides the toilet from the rest of the bathroom in a way. So, you know, it helps to make the bathrooms unique, more diverse, I suppose. And, you know, I'm trying new things all over with this particular build. The mid-century style home is a new one for me. The bathrooms have changed. A loft is also new. So I just came on here to film me, I suppose, trying all kinds of new things with you guys. But anyways, I suppose that's just representative of growth here. Moving on, the nursery came together quite quickly. The color palette that I had used already complemented a lot of the set that I decided to use, and so I just leaned into it. I didn't think too hard on it, which is something that I appreciate. Although, like, I need to continue evolving the way that I do bathrooms. Nurseries are also another particular room that I need to continue to evolve as well, because mine kind of are starting to look the same in a lot of ways, but I do like the formula that I have for the nursery. So it's like one of those things, much like the bathrooms, where it's like I have something good going, but I also need to learn how to change it up a little bit. Maybe there will be an opportunity later on. We'll just have to see how how I continue to evolve as this series goes on. The main floor bedrooms, I will admit they are a little squishy, a little more cozier, but I also feel like they are a realistic size in a sense. And for this particular lot, like I could have like expanded things a little bit, but I also just really like the way that they all turned out. Even the master bedroom, which admittedly I might switch the closet and the sleeping quarter spaces around, but outside of that, I don't think that the bedrooms on the main floor are an unrealistic size. I think that they are still livable, still playable at the very least, and they do what they need to do. Yeah, I don't mind the bedrooms at all on the main floor. Let's talk a little bit about the backyard, because I decided to give it like a sunning patio, and it's pretty much like a continuation of the hosting elements that are so predominant within this particular property. If you have a party animal sim that has a family, they would absolutely love this home. There is so much space and so much socializing opportunities, so many socializing opportunities, I should say, that Sims could have when hosting a party. Like, this would kind of be the perfect place for it. Or if you have a sim that is in the politician career, they can have those house parties here, and it would pretty much you'd have a lot of space to work with, and it would probably be a lot of fun for Sims to just kind of hang out and do the things at their parties. We all know that things go down at these parties, like deaths, etc., etc. So this at least has enough space for the Grim Reaper to just show up comfortably and all that jazz. So perfect for those kind of gameplay styles. But yeah, this is a great space for that really, I don't want to say it balances socializing and family gameplay, because it definitely encourages more parties, more get-togethers, more socializing than it does actual family gameplay. But I feel like the two separate play styles that it does what's the word? It does encompass. So the two different playstyles that it does encompass is certainly something that players will enjoy either way. So yeah, the only thing that I might make a change to the backyard though is that I might replace the suntan patio with a hot tub. I think that would just bring things to the next level. Or I might just reduce the size of the suntan patio and place in a hot tub. That's making it on my list of things to change in an upcoming Blue Water Village edit episode. So stay tuned for that whenever I get around to that thing. In the backyard, I did attempt to do a pergola over the bar and the barbecue area, but I ended up hating it. I failed at it, and I was defeated by another pergola structure. So if you've been on this channel for a while, you know that I was defeated by a restaurant pergola structure way back when. So, you know, I decided to kind of cut my losses there. I'll just keep the outdoor eating station, I'll just keep it without a pergola structure on top of it, although I really wanted one. And the reason why I was defeated by this pergola is because I really wanted it to connect to the wall of the home. And because it's on ground level and because the home is on a foundation, it just really wasn't going to play nice. Not unless I place not unless I surround it by a foundation first and then build a wall. I'm gonna have to write that down. That could be an edit episode coming up. The only problem with that then is figuring out ways to make the pergola structure make sense with supports like columns and all that. But I might just do like a wall column or something. I'm writing this down as we speak here. So that will certainly be something that I do. We are going to start moving on into the basement. Now, I'm going to apologize ahead of time here because in the basement, there comes a point where I scroll off to the screen, and, you know, with the way that basements work in The Sims 3 is that, like, your basement is under, like, I guess, like, I don't even know how to describe it, but pretty much like when you go into a basement, the rest of the screen is black and you're just focused mostly on the basement space. It's kind of like a sub level within the game that you're operating in. Anyways, So at one point in the basement build, the screen just kind of wanders off into that sub-level area where it's just like completely black, and hopefully I'll be smart enough to edit it. But if I don't, for whatever reason, that was my cat walking on my keyboard, and he does whatever he wants. He always likes to meow to get in. He just kind of wanders about. And as I was playing the game, he really wanted to play too. So he stepped on my keyboard and started wandering it off. And I couldn't hit the stop record button fast enough to, stop the recording. So if a little bit of that made it into the recording, I do apologize, but that is the wonders of owning a cat. They do know how to use technology, folks. So cats are indeed, if they all had a hidden trait of some kind, tech savvy would be it, if I'm going to relate it here. But anyways, I want to talk a little bit about the basement because I was really excited to do the basement here. And the reason why I was really excited is because I had a very clear vision on it. I wanted the basement to be a 90s style basement. Now, when it comes to 90s style basement, the first thing that I think of is, of course, the wood panel walls. That is very symbolic of the 90s, for basements at least. And I also know that they have like a shag carpet to it. Now, I was looking at different patterns and textures for carpets, and I just couldn't find one that kind of emulated a shag carpet well enough. So I just kind of changed the texture a little bit just to change it from the other carpet textures that I was using throughout the home here. But yeah, I remember like a brown shag carpet that's super soft and wonderful to walk on, continues up the stairs, and yeah. So that's what I think of like when I think of the 90s style basements, and that was something that I wanted to build within this particular lot here because it would fit in very well. And I was going to incorporate things like a TV. There would also be some video gaming options, and of course other entertainment options as well. Like when the adults are hosting the parties on the main floor, the loft, and I guess the backyard, you just throw the kids in the basement kind of thing. So that was the idea here, you guys. And the 90s was a very interesting decade, and I say this as someone who grew up in the 90s, and I'm not talking about like being born at the very end of the 90s. I'm talking about like seeing the whole decade, you guys. And I don't want to give away my age on my YouTube channel here, just because I want to try to give myself a little bit of privacy. But the 90s was like, even as an adult, it's very hard to describe the 90s, and that just kind of symbolizes the 90s in of itself. But the 90s was really when everybody from the 60s, 70s, and 80s just suddenly stopped partying and socializing, and they just let everything get a little dusty. Now, I'm not trying to fire off some shots here at older generations, but that's just, that's objectively kind of what happened. Like in the 90s, like nothing was too symbolic of this decade except for rap music. I will say hip hop and rap music was bumping in the 90s, but outside of that, there's really nothing too symbolic of this decade. And it was like a time where the world was sort of rediscovering itself in a way, like it was trying to figure out what modernism is. And the reason why I think that nothing is really too symbolic of the 90s is because it always referenced another decade that just sort of happened. Like in the 50s, I can find a lot of references from the 20s, but when we look at the 90s, there's a lot of references from the 80s, the 70s, and the 60s, decades that literally just happened, So the 90s was definitely an era, a decade where it just references other decades without adding on to them. So that's why I described it as a little dusty here, is because it never repurposed something. It always just blatantly referenced it and didn't really do too much to like make it representative of that era. It was a very confusing decade, you guys. Like, I'm not even too sure people can describe the 90s very accurately here. But hey, maybe it's just me and my lack of understanding of it. But as I was growing up, like interior decor, like even the jewel toned color palettes that were used in interior decorating, that was more of a reference from the 80s and even the 70s, or even the 60s actually, when I go to think about it, than it was of the 90s. Like the 90s may have brought in some more like honey woods in terms of like kitchens specifically, and white countertops, which I'm not hating on you guys, but it's just kind of what pops into my mind here. But yeah, like the 90s was never something that really had a distinct look and feel to it, which is why the basement really represents that. Like I put in like the dustiest bookshelves that I could find that just had kind of like junk and all that collected on it. I tried to grunge it up a little bit. Like the 90s was good for grunge, don't get me wrong, but even then, like I'm not going to get into that discussion. But in this basement build, I was trying to find the dustiest bookshelves I could. I added in several bookshelves, which is something that's rare for me to do because I know that they have specific functions in the game, and I don't like too many bookshelves within one room anyways. But yeah, the only thing that was really missing within this particular basement build was a waterbed. And if a waterbed was ever added in The Sims 3, that would be life-changing. That could have been one thing that they could have added from the 90s stuff pack, like the 70s, 80s, and 90s stuff pack. That would have been a game changer in a silly way, is a waterbed. But anyways, this is again where that stuff pack is coming into handy here. I was using it throughout this build along with the mid-century sets from The Sims 3, and combined with the 70s, 80s, and 90s stuff pack, it just really helps to bring these decades kind of together within this one build. And then all of the dust from that just gets sort of shoved into the basement. Speaking of which, like this basement, like this style of basement is absolutely it is absolutely famous for famous for getting people pregnant. So if you have a sim that is trying for a baby, just throw them in the basement here and they'll get pregnant in no time. Probably not for the better, probably for the worse, because this kind of a basement and the way that it always works out is that you usually have like some sort of a rowdy teenager that lives in the basement. And so I just really capitalized on those kind of sentiments and all that. So yeah, the teenager or the adult living with your sim will likely live in the basement, and they will likely get a sim or two pregnant, and you will just have to deal with the repercussions from that. And it made it very easy to decorate because I just threw in like an athletic object and a few posters here and there. Like the wood panel walls did a lot of the heavy lifting for me in terms of the basement, and same with the shag carpet too. So I was very happy with the basement. It's amazing. I'm sure that the tours are already playing for this home, and this was a longer episode, and I had a lot to talk about in terms of this build, my vision for it, etc., etc. And I had a blast doing this build, and I hope that it shows within the tours and within the final product in of itself. I feel like this home is very functional. It balances both like social gameplay and also family gameplay. And I just really fell in love with mid-century homes by the end of this. And it is a style that I absolutely do look forward to doing more of within the Blue Water Village neighborhood. The next episode in the next speed build will have us going back to the Far East Square neighborhood. I have a very, very ambitious build for that, and I might actually have to do those episodes in parts. I'm hoping I won't, but we'll just kind of see how that all comes out to be. But anyways, I am just going to take another second here just to say thank you so much for watching. And if you've enjoyed this episode and you want to see more builds like this, then feel free to like this video and consider subscribing if you haven't already. Thanks again for watching, you guys, and I hope you have yourselves a wonderful day.